Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm your host, Sergeant John Perrine, the Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police Indianapolis District. The Roadshow is brought to you each and every week by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. For more information about our sponsor, you can visit them at www.indianasfinest.com. We want to thank our friends at MS Communication Network Indiana, BK Brendan King, for pushing the buttons and making us record and also getting us on the airwaves across the great state of Indiana. We do appreciate their help. The man behind the camera is Tom Trial. Makes us look good, works so hard. If you could see all the equipment in this room, he really puts a lot of effort into this, and we're so appreciative to him. Our guests today, from way up in the northwest corner of Indiana, almost to Chicago, a good friend of the show is PIO Sergeant Glenn Fifield. Glenn, thanks for making the trip.
Thanks for having me today, John.
And he brought with him a trooper from the Lowell District who works midnights up there, and that's Trooper Nicole Manza. Nicole, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Waking up and coming during your off time.
I'm trying to stay awake. Got the caffeine.
I remember those midnight shifts, and I loved them, and I hated them.
Yeah,
they're great for work and bad for everything else, like having a life outside of police work. But no, great place to be. So the Lowell District is a big geographic district and also a busy district. What, just so folks have an idea, what counties do you guys cover up there?
So we cover the northwest corner of the state, and there's 7 counties up there. We have Lake, Porter, LaPorte, Stark, Jasper, Newton, and Pulaski County. So we've got a huge area. We've got everything from metropolitan area in the northwest corner to very rural in Pulaski County. So we have a wide range of patrol components in our district. Yeah, and do the best that we can to cover those counties 24/7 with the manpower that we have. And certainly I was fortunate enough to spend the first 2 years of my career at Lowell and up on the Borman patrolling, and it's changed a lot. I was just up there last week with Glenn, and hardly recognized a lot of the things. But so Nicole, tell us let's kind of walk through a typical shift for you. Your shift begins at 10 p.m. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're on 8.5, so it's 10 to 6:30 in the morning.
Okay, so kind of you mark on duty, and what are some things that you do? What are some things that you expect to come from your shift?
So the thing with our midnight shift is it's a little bit different than days or afternoons. We don't have assigned zones just because we don't have the manpower. It's kind of wherever the calls come. So typically most of the calls come to or from Lake County, which is, the Illinois state border. So it can range anywhere from, serious crashes and fatals to a lot of drunk driving and things like that. So yeah, it's typically our shift. Yeah, and so we're coming up into that season where we do see an increase in those drunk driving arrests and unfortunately the serious crashes that result of somebody driving impaired as well. So let's talk about the importance of having that responsibility that if you know you're going to be consuming alcohol, finding a safe way to get home. Right. I mean, there's Uber and Lyft everywhere nowadays, so I try to tell people that's a lot cheaper than, dealing with the hassle of getting in trouble. So. And so does the Lowell District do any special DUI patrols or checkpoints or anything? We do it on occasion. I know this past weekend, I think it was the 3rd through the 5th, we had the 6 state State Trooper Project. Yeah. So we had a lot of drunk driving, especially Saturday night. I think we had 3 people on special project. I think they each got 2 drunks apiece. I had 1, and then a few of the other midnight troops had drunks. So is there any kind of pattern? Like, is there a certain night of the week where you're like, hey, I know if I work this area, I'm probably going to find an impaired driver? Honestly, they're kind of all over the place. So we do get a lot right by state line, whether it's on or off the interstate. So kind of both in the city and outside on the interstate. But there's not really a specific time of week. I mean, the weekends are always busy, but during the week you can still get them. So yeah. What are some of the things that you look for driving behavior that will tip you off that someone may be impaired? Honestly, a lot of it's always speed, weaving in and out of lanes, things like that. It could just be slight. It could be, excessive speed, so reckless driving, anything from, 100 miles an hour plus. We do get a lot of that. So those are the biggest things. One thing that people tend to have a trouble with when they're impaired is dividing their attention, focusing on 2 things at one time. So sometimes we look at something that would be a combination that they're not doing right, like changing lanes without a turn signal or making a turn, but that turn goes too wide. Some of those things where we're looking for a combination is the key, but oftentimes it comes down to
weaving. And we also rely on those people to call 911.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things we stress is when you see something, say something. That phone call you make to get that impaired driver off the road, it not only could save that impaired driver's life, but also an innocent victim that they could hit. So if you do see something, call. And when you call, be prepared to give your location, vehicle description, the driving behaviors that you are seeing, and relay that to the dispatcher so it can be sent out to the officers and they can look for that car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is key. And I would say a lot of our DUI arrests, especially on the highways, do come from those phone calls. And they are a priority to us. So even if you think, I'm not really sure, but this person's doing something that got your attention, it's okay to make that phone call and let us try to intercept that person.
Absolutely.
We talk about the selfishness of somebody choosing to drive drunk, and that is, if somebody makes that choice, they drive impaired, they cause a crash that takes somebody's life or seriously injures somebody, the ripple effect of that is unending, because not only does it affect the family of the victim or the victim themselves, but you're talking that affects communities, the first responders that respond to those scenes. Those we're not robots. We don't show up to those scenes and just forget what we saw or forget who we talked to or those actions. So especially this time of year, it's just really important that people make that choice to drive sober and have that safe way home.
Well, I think something that Nicole can specifically talk about is slowing down for when you see an emergency vehicle on the side. Nicole, her vehicle was struck and she was injured, actually. If you want to talk about that, when people don't slow down for emergency vehicles.
I've been hit both inside and outside of my car. So when I was hit outside of my car, it was actually March. It was still pretty icy. We were on one of the ramps by Klein Avenue. And I think we had a total of like 11 or 12 crashes within 5-10 minutes, I think, total. So it was just, people coming over the hill crest and trying to slam on the brakes at the last second. And obviously it doesn't work out when the roads aren't the greatest condition. So I honestly don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember, before and after. So biggest thing was the speed. So
yeah, that's devastating. That's why it's so important to slow down. And people will drive on a snowy or icy highway thinking, I've got all-wheel drive, I've got four-wheel drive, I can see, whatever it may be, but you never know what's over that next hill. You never know what's around that next curve. You never know when the car in front of you is going to lose control. So reducing that speed and increasing that following distance allows you so much more time to make an emergency decision when you're driving to avoid that crash.
And it's just something that's so easy for everybody to do. It's just slow down a couple miles an hour. I always say it's better to get there late than not get there at all. And just not to be selfish in your driving. Use patience and think about other people and not just yourself when you're out there driving.
Yeah, and again, Lowell experiences something called lake effect snow. If you've never experienced that, it means you could be driving on a perfectly sunny day without anything, and a mile later you're in 2 feet of snow. So you got to just kind of mentally prepare for that everywhere you go. And lake effect snow isn't always predicted, and sometimes it just shows up, and so you got to kind of be prepared for that.
And we've seen a lot of snow squalls lately, and that's where, like you said, it'll be fine, and all of a sudden within a mile, 2 miles, you'll have a section of the road that's literally impassable because the visibility is so low. And we've seen a rash of that in the snow belt, or as that moisture comes down off the lake and that lake effect snow that you're talking about, and it creates havoc, and it's often unpredictable. Like you won't know a squall's coming until you're in it, and the weather can't predict those squalls. So we've seen that happen. In fact, that's how we had the big pileup a few years ago up on 94, where we had the 30-some car pileup, and we had a couple of people killed, and that was just a short couple-minute snow squall.
Yeah, and it could change so drastically so quick. So another big thing that's happening at Lowell is I pulled in there last week to get gas, and there's no gas pumps, and that is because Lowell's getting a new post and a new lab. So talk about kind of what's happening, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. We broke ground about a month and a half ago. First pillar just went up on Friday, so we're making a lot of progress. I know Fort Wayne's is done, and I know they love their new facility. We will be getting basically the same one. It should be done in spring of 2023, I think is the target date. So, pardon our mess, they like to say.
Yeah.
We are under construction, and it's going to be we're going from 8,000 square foot facility to, I think it's close to 40-some thousand square feet.
Wow.
So it's going to be a nice laboratory with the Lowell post, basically state-of-the-art facility. So it's really exciting to see that growing.
Very cool, very cool. And so we have about 5 minutes left. So what else is happening at the Lowell District through the holidays? You guys doing some Shop with the Cop events, anything like that?
I think we're working with a couple of local FOPs are doing some Shop with the Cop. I know the Alliance is active in doing those as well. The Lafayette Post does one down there in memory of Trooper Bartram that was killed in line of duty. So we are doing those, and I know that's one of those things that the troopers enjoy, getting out and giving back to the communities.
Yeah, and so it's a busy time of year up there when the Lowell. You guys have a lot of interstate. You know, I buy 65 from the 200-mile marker all the way up to the 260 something, and then I-80, 94 across. And fortunately, the toll road has their own district, so that's not one of your priorities. But you do find yourself on the toll road every once in a while in an emergency. Just talk about the difficulties in covering that much interstate. And trying to be everywhere all the time. It can be frustrating sometimes, right?
At least for midnights, yes. I know we're kind of short everywhere, but with midnights, like I said, we typically don't have the same kind of manpower as days or afternoons, but we actually have a lot of the rookies on midnights right now, but it's kind of a good working relationship. They kind of get the best of both worlds, and pretty much everybody responds to everything. So
and the frustration that I talk about isn't anger or it's you want to be there when that 911 call comes in and says, "Hey, I think there's an impaired driver," or this or that.
Right.
And you know, when we as Indiana State Police have that much area to cover, sometimes we rely on our local agencies to help us with those too. When we get that 911 call and we're not in the correct position, sometimes we can get them the right. So we want people to still make that 911 call, but it may not be an Indiana State Trooper that's responding. We
Absolutely.
Work together.
We have a great working relationship with a lot of the local jurisdictions. I know we work very well with the Lake County Sheriff's Department. They handle where priority of most of the traffic is on between I-65 and the Borman is basically Lake County. So we rely on them often to assist us, and they've been fantastic, as well as local agencies up there in Lake County, Crown Point, Hobart, Maryville, Gary Police Department, Hammond, just a couple, East Chicago. Well, they don't have any
Munster,
interstate, but Munster and Highland, Griffith. They often will come out and help us on crashes, and not only at the scene, but you have to remember if there's something bad, we have to close a ramp. Someone's got to close that ramp, and I'd be upset with myself if I didn't mention. But Hoosier Helpers, they're phenomenal. So they do a lot of that with INDOT, checking on vehicles and assisting at crash scenes with traffic direction. So without the assistance of the local agencies and Hoosier Helpers, we would be struggling.
Again, our overall goal is the public safety, and we will do whatever it takes. It's not about doing what's best for us. It's about what's doing best for the community. And so that's why those partnerships, that teamwork is so important, because for the most part, when somebody needs help, they expect a police or fire response, but they don't necessarily care what color their uniform is. And that's what's important to us, is that we work together with all those agencies to make sure that we're providing a service to the community. It's the same thing in Lowell and every other district across the state. We're thankful for those partnerships.
Absolutely.
And so we got about a minute and a half here. Is anything else going on up in the Lowell district that you want folks to be aware of?
So, not particularly. I'm going to ask you, how were you stopped at Albany's Candy Company the other day while you were up there? How'd that go? They've really expanded. What'd you get?
I always love their malt balls. Their triple chocolate dipped malt balls are delicious. But no, it's a good time. Anytime I try to get through there, I stop and get some candy for my kids and have a good time with that.
It's one of our staples up there.
Yeah,
they've really expanded a lot, and people come just up to Northwest Indiana to go to Albany's, just like you did. So
yeah. Well, really cool. We're certainly appreciate you guys driving all the way down today, and hopefully the folks listening will take some of the tips about the DUI driving and help us make the roads safer this holiday season and throughout the entire winter for everybody. Prepare your cars for that winter weather. Prepare your mind for that winter weather. We know that the roads are going to get slick. It's cold. There's moisture. Together they make ice or snow and makes the roads hazardous. So want everybody to be prepared for that. wherever you drive in the state or anywhere else. So I want to thank our guests, Sergeant Glenn Fifield for the Indiana State Police Lowell District, the PIO up there, and Trooper Nicole Manza, a trooper from the midnight shift up at the Lowell District. Thanks for coming in and sharing your insight about the district.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right.